Okay, so let me explain what's happening about Panama. Panama used to be part of Colombia, and the Panamanians were getting oppressed by the Colombians. They weren't getting fair representation. The Colombians weren't really developing their land as much, and didn't give the Panamanians as much in benefits as they had hoped for. And the Panamanians were sick of the Colombians ruling over them, and they wanted to be independent. Now, there's a revolution going on in Panama in 1903. The Panamanians asked the U.S. for help. The U.S. actually wanted to build the Panama Canal through Panama, but the Colombian government refused. And so the U.S. basically told the Panamanian rebels, hey, we'll help you get rid of Colombia, and you'll be a free, independent country, but in exchange, we want to be able to build a canal for your country. The Panamanian rebels agreed. The United States intervened on their behalf. Colombia backed off and basically didn't want to fight the U.S. and allowed Panama to become independent. So Panama really became a free and independent country because of American intervention, and that's how America gained the Panama Canal. Now, fast forward, in 1968, this dictator by the name of Omar Torrijos comes to power. He was a general, overthrew the government. He was dictator until 1981. Now, about Omar Torrijos, he wasn't that hated by the Panamanian public because he was a nationalist. He was very sympathetic towards the poor, and he had actually given poor farmers a lot of land in Panama, which made him a very popular guy. So while he was a dictator, he wasn't, as hated as other dictators. Noriega actually becomes his head of military intelligence. And Noriega was basically the CIA's, guy in Panama. The CIA would basically pay him for information, and Noriega would give that information towards the CIA and personally profit from it. Now, in 1981, Omar Torrijos dies in a plane crash. It was a suspicious plane crash. Some people think the CIA killed him, but the CIA didn't really have a reason to kill Torrijos, because while Torrijos wasn't necessarily a very pro-U.S. guy, he wasn't really anti-U.S. either. Torrijos actually negotiated with, Jimmy Carter in 1977 that the Panama Canal in 1999 would be given back to Panama. So there was really, the Panama and the U.S. had a working relationship with him, and they saw him as less radical than some of the other, socialists, like, for example, in, Nicaragua. So the U.S. really had no reason to kill him. Now, in 1983, what happens is that Manuel Noriega, becomes the head of the Panamanian Defense Force. And Noriega is probably the guy who had Torrijos killed just so that he could move up. And surprise, surprise, what happens is Noriega turns Panama into his own dictatorship. But what Noriega starts doing is he starts taking money from the CIA, but at the same time he is actually playing both sides. So he actually sells CIA information to the Cubans. That's how the Cubans had information on what the CIA was doing, and he also sells it to the Sandinistas, who were socialist revolutionaries in Nicaragua. So he was basically playing both sides. And what ends up happening is he's also working with the Medellin cartel. So the Medellin cartel could come into Panama. They could basically offload their drugs and then move it towards Mexico and towards America. And so he basically turned Panama into a narco state.